Hi, this is Edward Troxel. In today's tutorial, we're going to take an interesting look at a bunch of text events on the timeline, and we're going to actually search for a specific text phrase, and if we find that text phrase, we're going to move those events to a new track optionally, and we're also optionally going to make sure it's the same case, or it could be either case. So we are actually going to need a form on this one, so we're going to start with our form script, and then we're going to expand on that to add the options for moving to a new track or not moving to a new track. Either way, they're going to be selected, and then also have the option to match case, or it could be either case. So let's see how we would do this. The first thing we need to do is design the form. In this case, I just have a box that is named Find Matching Text in Titles and Text Events. Then we have our Find Text label. Next to that is a text box, which I called TXT Find, and that is where we will enter the text that we're searching for. Then I created a checkbox called CHK Match Case, which I labeled Match Case. And then we have another checkbox labeled Create New Track, which is called CHK New Track. Finally, we have our button, which is just button 1, and I put a name in it, says Find Text Events. So really the only thing with code behind it is this Find Text Events. In our code, we have our two variables up at the top, our Vegas, my Vegas, and then our video track where we are going to put the text if we want to move the text to a new track. So I'm going to create a text track variable, and I'm just going to set it to null initially. Then in my form where I'm loading it, I do the my Vegas equals Vegas, and I do the initialize component, and that will actually draw the form on the screen. Then when they click on the button, this is where I do all the work. So let's take a look at the work that button does. First of all, I'm going to get my match text equals my textbox.text. So textfind.text. Then if I am not doing a match case, then I'm setting my match text equals match text.toLower. So I don't care what case it is, so I'm going to convert it to lower. Then if my new track checkbox is checked, then I'm going to create a new text track equals a new video track, and I'm just going to put it at the top, and I'm going to label it by the name that was typed in initially into the text find box. And then in myvegas.project.tracks, I'm going to add this new text track. Now I need to go through all of the tracks. So for each track, my track in myvegas.project.tracks, I'm going to look for any text event. In this case, because I am possibly moving events to another track, I need to go through the list of tracks backwards. So that's why in my next line I have a for loop instead of a for each. And in this case, I'm creating an integer named I equals mytrack.events.count minus 1. Remember, events are 0 based. As long as I is greater than or equal to 0, and then we're going to do an I minus minus, and that will take us through all of the events. But now I have to get the actual event. So my track event, event, equals mytrack.events, and I'm getting the ith one. So once again, we're starting at the end and working our way backwards. And then I'm setting event.selected equals false. So that way, all events will be set to false by default, and then I can change the matching ones to true. So if this is a video track, so if my track is a video track, then I'm going to look at the events on that track. Otherwise, I'm just going to skip these events. I'm still going to go through all of them, so I can set the event.selected equal to false. But if it's not a video track, then I don't need to actually process the event. So if the event.activeTake.media is a generated media, so if dot is generated, then I know it's a generated media, and I need to see, is it the generated media I want to look at? So now I'm going to get the video event, which is the V event, which is the video event from EVNT. And then I'm going to get the effect. The generator effect is the video event.activeTake.media.generator. Now I need to see what kind of a generator this is. So if geffect.plugin.uniqueID equals, and here I'm looking for Vegas Creative Software and titles and text. Now here's where one of my problems run in. The person that I was writing this for was actually using Vegas Pro 14. In Vegas Pro 14, these weren't named Vegas Creative Software titles and text. They were named Sony Creative Software titles and text. So here I put in if the plugin unique ID is Vegas Creative Software titles and text, or the effect plugin unique ID is Sony Creative Software titles and text. That way it'll pick it up for both the older versions before Magic changed the internal name for these plugins from Sony to Vegas, or it'll pick up the older ones that were the newer ones that say Vegas. So then I want the OFX effect, and I get that. I called it OFX from the generated media effect.OFX effect. Now I'm going to get a string parameter, which I called tparm, and it's an OFX string parameter which I'm getting from OFX.findParameterByName, and the parameter I'm looking for is text. Now this text comes in as rich text, and so I need to convert that to just plain text. So what I did was I created a rich text box, which is RTF text, as that's a new rich text box. Then my RTF text.RTF I set equal to the tparm.value. So my tparm.value is an RTF string. So I set that into the RTF of the rich text box. And then I'm getting the string, which is a check text, and I'm getting that from RTF text.text. So now I'm looking at the string without all of the additional formatting. Next, if it is not supposed to match the case, if that checkbox is not checked, then I'm going to convert my check text to checktext.toLower, which is the same thing we did up here. I change my match text to match text.lower. So down here I change my check text to check text.lower, and that way they would both be the same case if I'm not checking to match case. If I am checking to match case, then I don't change them. Then I want to look to see if check.text contains my match value. If it does, then I'm changing the event.selected equal to true. So that one will now be selected. And then if my check new track control is checked, then I want to move this to a new track. So my event.track will equal the track of my text track. So that way I've moved it to this new track. Finally, when it gets done moving all of those, I've done a myvegas.update UI, and then I'm doing this.close. This.close will actually close the dialog form, so I don't have to worry about the screen not being properly updated, and this will finish the operation of the actual script. Then if we scroll on down, you can see this is all the code that is going to control the actual drawing of the form. And you can see this is the initialize component routine, and that will draw all of these different pieces. You can download the whole script from the description, and so you don't need to worry about typing all of this in. Now let's see how this works. Here you can see I have a bunch of text boxes. This one is a speaker 1, This one is speaker 2, speaker 2, and so they just keep going along, speaker 2, and then we'll have another one over here that's speaker 1 at some point. There's speaker 1, speaker 2. Over here is a bunch of speaker 1s, speaker 1, speaker 1, speaker 1. So you can see that they go back and forth between the two speakers. So let's check for speaker 2. So we'll run this script. And I want to check for speaker 2. We will leave match case checked, and we will leave create new track checked. So when I do this, notice the form went away. It has processed all of the speaker 2s. So if I come and look at this one, that's a speaker 2. That's a speaker 2. And so forth and so on. This one on the other track is a speaker 1. This one is a speaker 2. And if we zoom out, you can see that there are several events that have been moved up and several events that are still on the original track. So let's say we wanted to now select all of the speaker 1s, but we did not want to move it to a new track. So we would uncheck create new track. Now let's type in speaker 1. Now we will notice that it has selected all of the events on the second track, but it did not move them to a new track because we told it we did not want it to create a new track. Let's say that we wanted it to look for these last letters right here on this one, the FIFA, and we do not care what case it is. So let's see how many it'll find that has that in it. So we'll uncheck that. Let's go ahead and uncheck this, and we'll type in FIFA. Notice it did select this one event, and it selected some other ones as well. So there's another one. There's one. And so we'll notice that each one of those had FIFA in them. There's actually several others. So this is a cool little script that will let you go through and search through text events for any particular string. You can determine whether or not it matches case or whether or not it does not match case. You can also determine whether or not it takes all of these events and puts them on a new track or just leaves them where they are. And so I think this can be a useful little tool for many people, and hopefully you will find the techniques useful in your own scripting. And I hope you like this script. Subscribe, like, sign up to see the new ones, and we'll see you in the next tutorial. Please sign up at www.jettv.com and subscribe on YouTube to get further notifications on when new videos are presented.